Hello and welcome to Juicy Crimes. We are here in La Quinta with my sister, Shannon McDonald Goldstein, attorney at law, specialty in criminal defense, and also you now work in, how would you describe your position now, juvenile
Dependency.
dependency. So a wide variety of cases she has worked on. And she has done many episodes of Juicy Crimes in the past with me on my Patreon, but now it is for everyone to enjoy. So one of the cases I wanted to explore, which is very much in the news yet again, is the case of Amanda Knox, which there is an 8-part series on Hulu. A few episodes were released on August 20th, and now each week there's another. And it's her story based on her book. She and Monica Lewinsky have joined forces and are executive producers, which is really interesting. And just to give you the plain basics, Amanda Knox was a American college student who went to Italy, like many people do, I believe like her junior year of college, to study. And in those programs, your son went to Barcelona.
Yeah, Matthew went to Barcelona.
And he's not fluent in Spanish. You don't have to be fluent in the language. My friend did France. She didn't have to be fluent in French when she went 30 years ago.
I think Matthew was really proud of himself when he knew how to order the food in Spanish.
That's all that
That was the big accomplishment.
So the classes and things in those cases are done in English.
Correct, yes.
However, it seems that she could speak it somewhat okay, or was picking it up. So she's there. She has a cute apartment with a couple other girls, one being named Meredith, who I think she was from England.
Correct.
She was from England, and super cute town of, how do you pronounce it?
Pergulia?
Yeah.
I think that's Pergulia.
We are going to mess up tons of Italian words.
Yeah,
you feel free to comment and say that we're messing them up. Okay, we're not going to try to. We're doing our best. And she is got this boyfriend named Raffaella that she had only met 8 days prior to the day that then changed her life, in which after spending the night out with him and coming home to shower and get cute, she notices according to the show, a giant shit in the toilet.
Well, first she notices that the front door is open.
Right.
Yeah. And then that's kind of creepy. And she's like, hello, hello, hello. And nobody's there. And she just doesn't notice anything out of place. I think the first time she noticed anything that seemed out of place, according to the series, is like there was a little, what looked like blood on the sink. And so she thought that maybe it was one of her ear piercings.
Oh, okay. Right. So yeah, like, when you take out an earring and you're like, oh my God, that did not do well with my ear today. And you have like a dot of blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they kind of show her taking a shower. And then she comes out and she looks out on the mat that apparently she never noticed that the mat was kind of covered with blood. And then she still doesn't really think of anything because she thinks it's more of a time of the month type of thing. And then
of maybe of the roommate, because they all shared the bathroom.
Right. And then for some reason, then she notices the poop. And I guess these were girls that if they shit, they didn't shit, not flush, which is typically more of a male thing.
Do you know, just because this is Juicy Crimes, you guys, and it's coming from a point of view. Do you know who was accused of that? Not shitting and not flushing.
Who?
Britney Spears, back in the day. Yeah, there was a story about that, numerous stories of where she just wouldn't flush. And then we did an entire After Lately episode about it when I was at Chelsea lately, because there was someone in the girls' bathroom that was there was someone who was constantly not flushing.
Really?
In the women's bathroom. Mm. We found out who it was.
And did you?
We did a Juicy Crime on it. We did.
And did you ever confront the accuser? Or no, the accused?
We knew, and then, it was this girl that was allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, she was like a short-lived assistant. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say who it was for. And the reason we know is because when I walked in yet again to that bathroom, there was a sticky, like this, okay, folded up, and it had fallen into the toilet. And
she's doing
with writing on it.
She's doing work while she's shitting.
So I did get it. I picked it out. I took the piece of paper. I let it dry out, and it was a flight information for the person she was working for. We matched it up. We're like, who's going on this flight? So then we knew she is the assistant. She wrote down the flight number. She was doing her work. She is not. She's shitting and not flushing.
Well, do you think that maybe she only didn't?
Can you stop thinking about a defense attorney? She fucking doesn't flush, okay?
No,
There's
but maybe
no excuse.
but maybe she didn't flush that time because the paper accidentally fell in, and she knew that the paper was not disposable, and that could have started.
Shannon, a tiny piece of paper like this is disposable. It was
All right.
smaller than this.
All
It was
right.
a Post-it.
She might have thought.
So then I did it, and we actually did a reenactment for After Lately, which then I was accused of being a disgusting person. And I was like, I like true crime, and I'm a mother.
Yeah.
So shit does not scare me.
And you have
even
dug-
if it's not mine or my kids
And
or
you
my
have-
offspring or my dog.
And I'm pretty sure you've dug out shit in the past for your family, correct?
I mean, yeah, like I've never been scared of shit. Like I've changed babies that aren't mine. Like a babysat, like shit, baby shit, any kind of shit. It doesn't really. And I was going to solve this, and I wanted to get a gold star.
Yeah.
At this, so we did realize who it was. I don't think we ever confronted her, but she eventually left.
Okay.
She also was lying about a star from Friends that she was fucking.
Oh.
But let's get back to the crime, which is a real murder. Okay, so she sees that and she's like, ugh, whatever. And according to the series, she goes off and meets again with Raffaella, who comes to the house because she says, I'm a little freaked out. Can you come over? And even when she reaches out to her friend about being freaked out, the friend kind of jokes about it. Like, oh, really? You know, like they're kind of jokingly, oh, really? Like something's badly happening. Like, don't jump to conclusions. We then find that her roommate, in which the door was locked, dead body is found. Now, I just want to jump back to the very beginning of the show.
Okay.
It is such a weird tone.
Yes, I agree.
I'm like, what is this? It's basically like the beginning of like a rom-com when they're like, "Arr!" and there's a voiceover and they're like, let me tell you how this started.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So it starts out with like, all of a sudden it's like, my mom was this person, my dad was this person, and they made me. It's literally like the TikTok. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then she's like, and I was always that kid that was like, hey, everybody, I want to travel. And I was like, I thought it was, whoever thought of that, maybe I saw one interview where she's like, it's been almost 20 years, because the crime happened in 2007. It's almost been 20 years. She is free now. And we're going to walk through it all, but she's been married for a while. She has 2 small children, and of course doing podcasts with her husband and stuff, which is fine, and an author. And I think she wanted to have that. I would be surprised if maybe they were like, I don't know. I don't know who decided that was a thing.
Well, I think she was trying to introduce herself as someone that, I don't have these deep-seated issues. I didn't have a troubling past. I think she was trying to put that out ahead of time to kind of let the audience know this is why the trauma was even greater, because I live this pretty seemingly normal life. But I agree. I think the tone is really
good
weird.
point. But like trying to be like, I guess I'm just like adverse to people that are not funny, that then later in life, like think that they're funny, whether it's a housewife doing like ridiculous sketches on TikTok, though they have every right to do it. It's just like, I don't know. There's just something about it where I'm like, can you stick to your lane? But I get it. And
I think what was kind of weird for me too is that it's pretty clear as the show goes on. I think that we're only into 3 episodes as we're giving this podcast, but they do the same thing with the prosecutor. They kind of tell him this weird background story too.
Yes, you're right.
And it's pretty clear that they're sort of giving background as to maybe why these 2 people had such a different take on this, unfortunately, this horrible crime.
I'm going to say, in the little research I've done and just like seeing people review it and stuff, I don't think this is really being that well received. I don't really think it's too long. I think there's too much Italian speaking with subtitles.
There is a lot.
And a lot in the beginning. And I'm like, I think I would have just done Italian accents and just had it in English
Right.
with the detectives and everybody else. But maybe they really needed to do that because that was her perspective of
Correct.
not understanding. I get that.
Yeah.
But like the storytelling at home, I think it kind of loses people.
That might be the case, but I definitely think that is the big, because everyone's like, my God, how could you have gotten this so wrong? I think there's a lot of people that are like, why didn't you get in a lawyer sooner? I mean, I think there's a lot of people, if you look back at the case, like we would have, you would have handled it better. And so I think she's trying to kind of show how it got just completely out of control from her perspective, which I think they do a pretty good job on that.
So as someone that was following this case, every time there was, because it went on for so long, just to give the basics, she does get convicted with her boyfriend along with another man, Rudy, for doing the crime. And the prosecution thought that the three of them were involved and built that case. They thought they were into like a sex crazy thing, and a sex tryst or sacrifice or something went wrong, or it was intentional, and Meredith died in this, which is really crazy when you think that she was just a cute college girl a couple of years ago, and that she'd only known this guy for 8 days. So really that you're going to meet and get into this kind of sick shit within 8 days of just being a new couple. And so in doing that, I think we're watching this, and back in the day when there were 2020s and Datelines and stuff, when I first heard about it, it really was her initial reaction when the cops come and they're filming her and she's kissing Raphael, and she's not just kissing him and he kisses her head and holds her. They are like multiple kissing, like almost ready to slip tongue. At least that's what they showed in the movie. And if this is her movie, I think she's portraying what really was seen. I remember seeing way too much sexual affection right after the murder. And so there's initially that's what turned America media, everybody, certainly the Italians, against her, was this moment, which I've talked about this before, but there's been moments in watching true crime where an isolated incident of someone, laughing, or even if it was Karen Reed laughing or something, can you not, during your trial, can you not laugh for the next 4 years? Can you not be seen enjoying a tuna fish sandwich if you're on trial for murder? But this was the day of, and it did look weird.
Well, I mean, I think now we know a little bit more about trauma. I mean, I don't even think back in 2007 there was really enough, even from America's perspective, of how people can react to trauma. There was pretty much one view, and this clearly was not the view, because I think, and they do a pretty good job on the show, they show the other roommates, the other people crying, freaking out. It was almost like it hadn't hit her yet. And then there's times later on in the show where she kind of says, is this really true? Did they really find a body? It was almost like she hadn't really come to terms with it.
Because they had to break open the roommate's door.
Correct.
And that's when they saw that there was a body covered over a sheet.
Right.
And one of the things that the prosecutor said was, well, it's more likely that a female killer will cover a body versus a male killer. And that's just, there's no facts to that.
Correct. That just, and most people would say, yeah, probably. But I mean, you're going to convict somebody on that? Yeah.
I remember in another case of, remember the Spector case, Phil Spector?
Yes.
Who was convicted of killing this young girl. He said that she got to his house for the first time after meeting her at a bar, and she ended up killing herself with his gun. But then there was all this testimony that he would play with guns and have women put guns in their mouths and everything. And one of the things was women, especially very attractive women, very rarely will end their life like that, destroying their face.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but is there really a Stanford study on it? I don't know. But I always thought, well, that makes sense.
Correct.
It's kind of like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense, but it's not like a fact. It's like an opinion. So the one roommate's boyfriend or somebody breaks open the door. They have the police coming. We see the sad makeout stuff. And this is where, there's been so much written on this and done it. We are not experts. We did not read every book. But where I was confused in the show, it wouldn't show it, and maybe this didn't happen. Wouldn't you call your mother and father first and say, I cannot believe it. My roommate is dead. She's dead. Like, can you guys come here? Can you be here? I wouldn't be assuming I would be thought of the murderer.
Correct.
But I would be like, I'm not staying here. Clearly,
Right,
I'm not going
right.
to stay here another night.
Right.
And like, my roommate's dead.
Right.
And I'm 20 years old. Like, what?
Well, I think she did call them, but she told them kind of don't come yet because she kind of felt like I'm a witness and, you're being kind of course. And then there was this weird scene that they call the police, but the police that come are more of like a lower level police.
Right.
And they're coming in because they found the phone. They found Meredith's phone. And of course, at this point in time, we don't know who killed, right? And then they seem like, well, what do you mean the phone? And then you have the lost in translation, and they seem weird and nervous. And why are you here so soon? So they those police officers kind of said they're acting odd because, they called us, or they say they called us, but they act like they were surprised to see us. And I think they were surprised to see us because they came so quickly because they were not the police officers they expected to see at that time.
Yeah.
So there's all those little behavioral issues that seem odd. And then we find out that the other roommates that I think are maybe from Italy or from Germany or other areas of Europe don't particularly like Amanda. It almost seemed like of the four roommates, Amanda and Meredith, or at least the way they portray it, were very, very close. And maybe they were close because they both spoke English.
Right. Yeah, they were like immediately not on her side or saying, oh, she would never or anything like that. And so then she goes to the police station, and this is where the loss in translation and, just like anybody, when you're American, the berating of long questioning to the point where then you might do a false confession, you might say the wrong thing. You might, even if you're the Real Housewives of OC, you might say the wrong thing in the back of a car after filming for two days straight and being confused. And then say, well, no, that was a false confession. I didn't mean to say that. And so that happens. And that's where this part was so interesting, where she kind of implicates her boss.
Right.
Named Patrick Lumumbi, because she worked at a bar.
Right.
And so that's important to the case because later on, by just saying that, just like saying it don't you think that's crazy that then they accused her and convicted her of defamation just because she said like it might be this person in a confessional? I know it's a different country, but isn't that crazy?
Well, it's kind of crazy. And she does feel guilty about it. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy because that is the product of the interrogation, and the way they show it is they're literally like bombarding her so much to the point where like she was like, I don't know if I really remember. I remember seeing him. Why did I say that? And it was so weird because he says, I don't think, you don't need to work tonight. She's like, great, see you later, which obviously in America
On
means,
a text.
Yeah, on a text. Well, see you later, or the way it's translated in Italian, they interpret it as I'll see you later tonight when we have this,
sex tryst or whatever.
And maybe something will go terribly wrong. Like it's so crazy. But then she keeps seeing his name, and she's kind of thinking, because they're also kind of leading, give us something and then we'll release you. There's always that innuendo. And now in the show, by the time she actually says it, they give her, of course, a statement that's written all as a confession. It's in Italian. We don't know yet. I think she even mentions earlier, I understand it, but I can speak it and understand a little bit. I don't read it. So of course it's in Italian, and she just signs it. She signs it because she's numb, really. It's almost an out-of-body experience when you kind of have all this sort of, even to the point where I think the translator is kind of jumping in on the whole interrogation, which of course, if that ever happened, that's ridiculous. You don't have 7 people just jumping on somebody, but that's the way it's portrayed.
And so, I mean, it's such a long situation with, then of course the parents finally like are like, what, and they're
Yeah.
trying to get attorneys from America over there, but it is like off and running, and it is the hottest story in Italy of like what it sells tabloids, it's clickbait. I mean,
Right. It's definitely.
any story that, I mean, like in a Meghan Markle's defense, when somebody puts something with Meghan Markle or Taylor Swift in any kind of story, then that does get a click. So
Right.
there are editors that just tell their writers, like, no matter what, we saw it with OJ, every night on hard copy, this person, Cato had a friend from college that we're going to speak to, like whatever it is. So it was juicy. And
Yeah.
there was this element that Italy being, Roman Catholics that,
Correct.
started Catholicism essentially, that it's a more conservative place. And they were out to get this slut, this
I mean,
American
honestly,
slut
yeah,
that
this
like
is.
was screwing this guy after knowing him only for a few days. And they were into some sick shit that went awry.
Well, it's very much like the Scarlet Letter. I think a lot of it was, I mean, looking now back at it, almost like, the crazy immigrant that comes to Europe. And even though Meredith was also an immigrant to Italy, she was still in Europe. But, we have a totally different hemisphere person coming in. And it's kind of this, like, I agree, it's very
Yeah.
salacious. I think at different times they kind of ask her to write down how many partners she has. At this time, I think she's 20. And I think she writes something like 7 partners down, but then they turn it into she had 7 partners since she's been here. And she may have only been here, 6 to 8 months. And that's not what she was saying. She was writing her partner since she, I think, became sexually active at 18.
So did she have 20 or did she have 7?
She had 7. But I think,
Where did the 20 come from?
I don't know. I did not, that's not something I'd heard 7, but maybe they just added to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But I think the way what she indicated was, in this time I had 7, which of course to them they're going to say it's too much. But then you couple with the roommates who said I think they mentioned that she was bringing guys over every night. And then, until she met maybe Raffaele. So yeah, she might have been enjoying and having her best life, but it certainly wasn't to the point of
Doing deviant sexual
correct
stuff. Yeah.
correct. I think it was a lot of the behavior in the beginning, which is really amazing, because I think the way it's done is the prosecutor, and this is where it gets kind of weird because it goes back into his background, and it kind of makes it almost sound like he is a disciple from God who is here to anoint. It's his duty to find the bad people, and he believes it's her. And then he rests on that because he thinks he has a confession. And then when the DNA evidence doesn't seem to run in his favor, he just goes, but it could be another theory. And he just comes with a theory.
And what is the DNA that comes out?
Okay, so this is the DNA essentially that comes out that connects Amanda and Raphael to this crime scene is that her DNA is found on, I think it's found on both a knife and a bra clamp of maybe Meredith's that was perhaps at the house, but also maybe a knife at Raffaelle's. Well, if she's spending 7 or 8 nights at Raffaelle's, her DNA is going to be on a knife because she's not walking around with gloves. And then if you recall, they send her to the house, assuming with no gloves on it because it wasn't a very clean scene, to go through the knife drawer to tell us which knife is missing. Well, she's touching the knife handles right there. And she, freaks out and cries. So they really build a lot on her ability. Now she's crying. Now, she didn't cry when it happened because she's this cold-blooded killer. But she's crying now because she's realizing what she's done. And they just run with that theory, period. And then it is a little concerning because, like, how did your DNA get on the knife? But it's like, well, it could have been anywhere. It could have been from that. It doesn't look great, but it could have been from anywhere. And I don't know if we ever really determined that this was the knife that matched the wound I don't even know if that was ever really determined. That's why this case is kind of insane that it ended
And
up.
the DNA does match this guy Rudy,
Right.
because he was it was a seaman, so he had sex with her, whether that was consensual or not.
But there's also a bloody print that
And
is
there's
matched.
that matched his hand as well.
Right. So that case is actually pretty open and shut. He says, "Oh, I was there, but then there was this anonymous killer that came in
Like,
and
I
attacked
left.
her."
We had sex and I left, and
What-
then somebody must have come and killed her.
And that is a more what we call a standard case that a prosecution should definitely be able to convict, and in fact did. That's the scary thing, is that in 2008, this Rudy character, Guede,
And
is convicted,
and
and
we know
she's
that-
not convicted yet.
And
They
was he just some? He was just some guy that was like at the bar, or worked at the bar. Did they know who he was, or was he just like not a migrant, but like was he just like a, what do you call it? Like a traveler, like
Yeah, it could have been a traveler. It could have been a situation where Meredith it might have been a consensual night out.
hold
I
on.
don't know.
Can you just look up on your phone about and we don't have to cut this part out. I just want to know, because there's so many elements, you guys. Rudy, who was convicted in the Amanda Knox thing, what was his job and where was he from? Because I can't remember. Did he also work at the bar or something like that? Because I'm remembering all these people that she said the Patrick guy worked at the bar, that she got in trouble for defaming him, according to the Italian police. And then this Rudy guy, I don't know if she knew him or not.
Well, I mean, I do remember from the show, and you might remember
Yeah.
too, that they do say that the evidence, some forensic evidence, clearly belonged to an African American. They definitely
Okay.
said that. So I think that's why Patrick, all of a sudden, when they saw the text, they really wanted to jump
I guess it
all
wouldn't
over
be an
that.
African American if he was an American. Or
Well, you
just
know what
be
I mean.
Someone with African
Well,
ethnicity.
yeah, a black person. I mean,
Yes.
It says he did not have a defined job. He had a long, history of break-ins and other offenses.
See,
Oh, so
I
he
think
had
it was.
he had a record. So he was like a small time criminal that was going around.
Right.
And he probably had other crimes in his past, maybe assault as well, that were just not convicted.
Well, and that would lead me to believe that this guy did not know Meredith, that unfortunately she was probably just a product of being in the wrong
So
place
it was
at the
like-
wrong time.
Yeah, which
And
also makes no
does
sense.
show,
So that,
it does show.
So that she and her boyfriend would meet this random dude and be like, let's all have a 4-way sexcapade.
Well,
and
remember,
kill my roommate.
remember there was a window that was broken into. I mean, there was clearly a window that was broken into, but the prosecutor made it sound like, what, is he Spider-Man? How was it broken into? So almost made it sound like it's an inside job. Like, I'm inside and now I'm breaking the window. As
To
opposed
make it
to
appear to look.
as opposed to I'm breaking the window to come in. But I don't think it looked impossible for the guy to get up on the window. I mean, you don't know. I mean, but they made it sound like that must be an inside job. Now, especially when you look at crimes today, I mean, there are ways to show whether the window was broken from the inside out to the outside in. I mean, there are just much more technical stuff that's done today that can determine whether this is an inside job or a random person who may have seen her walking home.
And I'm guessing there was just so much shoddy police work as far as not securing the place.
Well, remember the other thing that was so interesting was that the coroner was there and he goes, I need to do my job. And they go, no, but we need to start investigating. So the coroner didn't come in there for too late. So then the big issue was, what is the time of death? Because time of death has to be determined immediately based on the temperature of the body, among other things. That was never done. So then the coroner admits, I don't know the actual time. And of course, the prosecutor's trying to, well, it could have been this time, it could have been that time. And then I think the guy ends up being fired because it's messing up the prosecution's theory of what in fact happened. I think what's more disturbing about this entire case is how long this really unsubstantiated theory went on for. I think that's really the travesty. And when they call it the twisted case of Amanda Knox, that's really the travesty.
I mean, it's just so horrific to think that you're just this, upper middle class girl.
Right.
Who is like, yeah, I'm going to do, a year. I mean, I haven't done a lot of travel. And from the moment I saw what was it called? The Palace. Claire Danes and that other girl.
Oh, yes, I remember this.
What was that name of that movie? And these two young girls are having a really fun time. They're like in Thailand and all these places, and they get wrapped up in kind of like taking some drugs for a guy and bringing him here or there or whatever. And then they also go to a hotel and like have a fun day at the hotel. I remember the scene. And they just are lying about their room so they can put like all the food on a room. And then that is in fact like what gets them arrested, I think. I don't know. It was crazy. I don't know if it's based on a true story, but it was that kind of story. So there was a whole series called Locked Up Abroad. There was a movie a movie I saw when I was way, way too young. I want to say it was called Midnight Express.
Okay.
Can you look up Midnight Express movie? I mean, I think I was like 6 watching this movie, like at home. And it was, again, a guy who was in a foreign prison, like Turkey or something, for doing some crime based on his true life and how he gets out. And I remember, like, there was some nudity in it. So that's what's, remember, like his girlfriend or wife comes to visit him and is talking to him. And like she pushes her boobs up against the glass so that he can like see him, and then she gives him a book of photos, and she's like hinting that there's something underneath the photos,
Okay.
to help get him out.
Oh, like an
and
escape.
like how he got it. And it's always just freaked me out so much to be convicted or in prison for a crime you didn't commit, but not in America.
Oh, yeah,
like
no.
you think America's hell? I mean, this story, the fact that she was there for so long,
Right.
and even though these people were of means, they're not Jeff Bezos means. I
Right.
mean, like eventually, like what are you going to do? And just to think that they went through Christmases and at Christmas party and like, how's Amanda doing? Well, she's still in prison because she does get convicted.
Right.
And is set to do 26 years
Right.
for this crime.
Right.
What was the name of did you look it up?
Yeah, it was made in 1978.
Yeah.
Made in 1978.
Yeah.
What am I doing at 8 years old watching an R-rated movie about
Right.
a guy?
Right.
And what was the synopsis? He got. Can you read the synopsis of the movie real quick?
Well, he was caught by the Turkish police while attempting to smuggle hash out of Istanbul, and he was sent to prison for 4 years.
Yeah.
He was sent to prison for 4 years. Okay, I just want to say.
Well, this is
Can
still
I just say
this
that
is still
at
happening.
me at 8 years old, I remembered that it was a Turkish prison. I'm telling you, it was a huge movie. It was a big, but
It was a big movie.
It left such an impression. And then to see the Claire Danes and the other girl get sent to the Thai prison, and then this was so disturbing to me.
Right.
In the beginning, yeah, I was like, I think from the moment they started to report on it, like on Dateline or 2020, it was saying that this was shoddy police work and stuff. But they were saying how they came up with it, with her like making out with the boyfriend and stuff.
Right.
I wonder if, and people have brought this up, could she have been somewhat on the spectrum? Is she just kind of an odd girl? Could it be that she just doesn't react in a typical way? But again, what we always say on the show is, who's to say how you're supposed to
Right.
react when something so shocking happens and what you're thinking of? And there is no, like, the minute you find out that your wife has been gone missing, you're supposed to fall to the ground, roll around, cry, throw up,
Right.
then put up signs, not go to bed, not talk to anybody. Like, who's to say what you're supposed to do?
Well,
you know?
I think based on her age and the fact that this was not her, where she's from, but really the age is the naivety. I mean, if you really look at it, that's what's been played up. For example, she realizes, that she didn't really remember. Now she has clarity. So I'm going to talk to the prosecutor and I'm going to write this whole statement all over again and everything will be cleared up. And that is a very normal way for a young person to think. I have been taught that law enforcement is going to protect me. There's no reason why they won't. I'm having a great time. I have met great people here. Meredith was a good friend. They will understand. And they don't. And it's all very contrived. And so, yes, that's when obviously when the parents came in and then they hired private counsel and a counsel that could maybe explain from America, the translation, but also understand Italian. in the beginning, she's given counsel, and I'm sure counsel's fine, but they're Italian counsel. And it's pretty evident from the way this show is portrayed. And this makes sense. Everyone's kind of, in the same, they're all kind of working together, even though they're working differently. I think there's a time where we're talking about house arrest or a bail hearing, or is she going to be likely to flee? And it's in this little tiny table, kind of like what we're at. And then, in Italian, and she doesn't really understand, are you formally objecting? He goes, well, I'm making my argument. Like, because the prosecutor kind of looks at what we would call maybe a public defender and say, come on, make your argument, whatever. But, this woman should not go back to America based on what I believe she's done. And I'm the prosecutor, right?
I mean, I do have to say, if you're really up for murder, you shouldn't be.
Correct.
Go back to your hometown. Like, I mean, you really shouldn't.
Correct. And I think from that perspective, usually whoever would be representing somebody accused of murder knows it's an uphill battle to get house arrest, when clearly the first thing she's going to do on house arrest is leave the country. Now, obviously, maybe they would say, no, don't leave the country. But now she's stuck in this situation. Where are they going to protect her to? Because now they have basically tainted the media. I mean, It was almost like, you're like burned at the stake, right? It's a Joan of Arc story almost.
Well, that's why she said she connected with Monica Lewinsky, because, with Monica Lewinsky, it was really, I mean, talk about perspective,
right?
30 years later of a crime.
I know.
This girl was barely out of college, and was she excited that the president was like flirting with her and was like, come give me a BJ? Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. She was excited. Talk about a great story to take back to the sorority sisters. You blew a football player, but I blew the president. Like, come on.
Oh my God.
And then she, shares her secret with the Linda Tripp. And again, it all goes back to Housewives. Whether Gretchen told Katie or not, she thought it's just going to be between us.
Right.
She didn't know that Kiki Monique was going to be working for the government.
I mean,
like, it's so true. It's like you think that whole story. So she, of course, and I remember like thinking back then, like, oh my God, I wonder if Monica Lewinsky will ever get married, being that we're like the same age and kind of, which is women our age wanted to get married at 30. I know it's a different story now, but we want to get kind of married by 30, have the babies by 35.
Right.
Like, that's what people our age wanted. I'm like, I wonder if she'll like find some great looking, good guy and get married and have kids and live a traditional life. And her name was so synonymous with, oh, you're getting a Lewinsky? You're getting a Lewinsky? And I imagined seeing a traditional wedding invitation at the time.
Yeah.
Saying like, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are thrilled to announce the engagement between Jonathan Jones and Monica Lewinsky. And I was like, and I remember thinking,
never going to happen.
I think if she marries someone, it's not going to be someone of the traditional pedigree that she came from, which was private schools in Brentwood. I'm like, I just don't think. And I think she looks great. I think she's made an incredible career for herself now. Yeah. But I mean, and she, like Amanda, has told her story many different times and ways. There was an HBO documentary. There's been books. There's been movies. There's been things that she hasn't signed off on. But again, it's the woman, that is the easiest one to point at. And it's because not only are the men doing it, but women aren't supporting you either. They're like, what are you doing, you little slut with your beret? Trying to ruin a cute family like the Clintons.
It is kind of interesting, and it's nice that Monica and Amanda can really join in this, because their stories are really similar as far as just, what they overcame, not just legally, but obviously in the media eye, and how it hasn't really, they've never really been completely vindicated in a certain sense, because there's people that probably don't know that somebody else was convicted before she was. I mean, I think that was one of the big things, is I wasn't really sure exactly who killed this girl. And that's so unfair to the victim's family and to the victim. I mean, if you think about
I'm glad that this story, that she is doing this thing, because as someone who followed it, I remember that she did time sometime, but she did eventually get out, that they did get the real person. But that's like all I did not realize until we started to delve into it, that she was convicted, and so was the boyfriend of 8 days, and so was Rudy, and they all did, they did 4 years before they were able in the Court of Appeals of Italy to get it overturned for Raphael and Amanda Knox.
Right.
Rudy was still convicted because of his DNA and everything.
Yeah, because it was
but
like
he
open-
got out after 13 years. He got out.
That's crazy.
And he had priors. That's insane.
Well, that's what makes it so crazy too, and that's why I talk about the victim's family, because this is a horrible crime. There were a lot of victims in this, but where do you turn? And then can you imagine you send your daughter off and she's saying, "Oh yeah, everything's great. I met this great girl from America. We're best friends." And then you start to hear this just horrible, sordid tale, and you really are only hearing, well, she confessed. I mean, what are you supposed to think as a family member?
She said in an interview recently, Amanda Knox, that she has never talked to Meredith's family.
Yeah.
She's never had
That's
any
understandable.
contact with them, positively or negatively. And I was trying to get a little research on what their reaction was, but when she was finally exonerated of the murder after 4 years, they just said the family members of Meredith were just stoic at the court. Like I think that's so so hard when you're obviously the parents of a victim. It's horrible, but you think, you're working with the prosecution, you think they found the person, and then they're like, no, we didn't. And you like, kind of like the Karen Reed families,
Right.
family of the victim.
Yeah.
They still didn't want to believe anything other than, no, she did it.
Right.
She did it, and that's that. And I'm like, I get that, but if your child is dead, would it be some comfort to know that the person that they knew and trusted wasn't the one that killed them? Like, I would rather it be a random person than like their best friend or roommate or girlfriend.
Well, right. I mean, because you want closure, and
Right.
and unfortunately, even closure it's not going to bring your
It's never,
child
and
back.
it goes on forever. Every
And
time
it-
there's an appeal or probation, then you're faced with the whole thing again. You
But
can't
I-
move on as
I
a
mean,
victim's parent.
I do think at least they had closure with the Rudy conviction. I agree it's not enough time at all, but at least there is something to show that this guy clearly was involved. But then to extend it out, then they had to think, well, it wasn't just a random thing. It was actually somebody that she knew and liked and was living with. I mean, it's like, talk about living with the enemy. So it's just to go to those lengths to convince yourself that your story, and I'm talking from the prosecution and police, is correct, that I can't be wrong. And if I'm wrong, well, then I'm not really wrong. And to just somehow make everything sort of fit into your box.
I'm guessing anybody that's sending their kid off to do a semester at sea or a year in a different country through the school, if they hadn't remembered this story and they're currently watching it, it's gonna make they're gonna make sure that they have every embassy number, not only in their phone but like printed out on a piece of paper on their person, maybe some other personal contact that they can connect with, a family member or somebody. Like, I would be so freaked out because we put our kids in situations now where they're living with someone that they've never met in tiny quarters in a college that we're paying $50,000 a year for. And sure, you can do some prior research and that's always fun, but it's still, there's many people that just, this is your roommate and you don't know what their mental health is like, what their situation is. I mean, with well, I don't want to say, but for someone who's close to me, very close, this girl we thought was a good roommate and she was fine, but she was bringing over Tinder guys to the dorm room, and that were not part of even the school.
Right.
Drank only sodas and refused to brush her teeth for a year. And this person who's close to me had to live across the, in a tiny room.
Right.
And there's no getting out of it, so it's like with this whole situation, speaking of which, then I wanted to look up what was it like to be in Italian prison for 4 years. And I was like, if anything, is the food a little better?
Right.
Is it like,
Are they serving pasta?
Are they serving some pastas? It's a little more gourmet. So when we read it, it was so, it was like she woke up in a room with 3 other women. There was a bucket for dirty laundry. There was a small kitchen. There was, I think, did they say a bathroom or something? But it was, no privacy, and it wasn't, fancy or anything. It was and Drake was reading to it. He goes, "Sounds like the dorm room of LSU, which your daughter just started at, which is, an older building and everything. And of course, you could make it cute and all that, but like,
Yeah.
no." And then she would spend her days for 4 years. I'm like, how did she spend her days? And she did make the most of it, it sounds like. She wrote a lot, did a lot of diaries, which I'm sure all led to some profitable stuff in telling her story.
Right.
But also she would translate the Harry Potter books. And so now I believe she's probably quite fluent in Italy, in Italian.
Well, if you're going to be there for 4 years and then you really know that you misunderstood everything, I mean, you would be able to at least learn another language.
And I mean, I always thought, like, you're the Raffaella guy. Was there just like, how the fuck
Did I get
like,
myself
I just
into
met you
this?
8 years ago.
8 days.
8 days ago. I just met you 8 days ago. And now, and in what I read is they, obviously the relationship didn't last. It wasn't a love that was going to last throughout 4 years, but they did keep in touch. There is a friendship. There was writing going back and forth. They did meet up on a couple occasions when they both were exonerated over the years.
Well, I think the way it whole started is, of course, they separated them. I think they wanted him to come back, and then she said, "Let me come back too." And
back where?
Come back to the interrogation room. This is in the
Okay.
beginning.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, "Oh, they want to talk to me. Well, I'm not going to let you go alone," which probably was one of the worst mistakes she ever made. She should have just stayed back. Then they bring in what I call kind of like a mole while he's being interrogated, and they're getting him to say, that, Amanda never came back to your place. She was there the whole time. So he eventually says, "Yeah, maybe she wasn't with me." So now they've got him saying that she was back at the apartment doing what she was doing. So
Because they were smoking weed that
right.
night. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole pot thing, like somehow, but that's the problem. You lie about one thing because she said she lied about the pot because she didn't want to get her roommates in trouble. You lie about the pot, then you're going to lie about
they were
everything.
pot smokers.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's pot. But then they're thinking, he doesn't even know where she was. So her whole story about watching the Amelie movie and everything like that is all. So they get him.
They said they were watching a movie.
But they get him to say, "Oh, she wasn't with me." What was he going to say that? So now she's like, "Well, why would he say this?" And then they bring in, I call it like a little mole, where they're kind of saying, "So, she doesn't know who he is." She goes, "So what do you do to relax?" "Well, I do yoga." This is another weird part in the movie.
Okay.
Where then, show me the yoga. So now all of a sudden she's doing her yoga poses in a police station.
And that is also a video that went viral that looked like she was standing on her head and doing cartwheels and stuff.
Instead of grieving.
Yeah, instead of grieving in a joyful, what kind of monster,
But it's also
does something
kind
like
of
that. Yeah.
It's also kind of sexual. Like some of the moves she's making can be kind of seen as sexual, and she's doing splits on the floor. I think that was the narrative that they were trying to build. Then I didn't know that video went viral. Then they can take that video viral. Then she's just being found guilty in the media, which is why why her teaming up with Monica Lewinsky is kind of like, this is how things can go so very, very wrong when somebody has a narrative and doesn't even think about the truth anymore.
There was this woman who I believe is still in prison. It's one of those shows that keeps coming back and following. And she had left her 2 little kids sleeping on the couch and said that someone came in and brutally stabbed them. And she did get convicted for their murders. She always has claimed her innocence. And when it was one of their birthdays, or they had birthdays very close together, she went to their grave before she was convicted and was laughing and spraying silly spray on the graves. And a reporter had followed her, filmed that, and they were like, "What a sick bitch."
Right.
And she was like, "No, they loved silly spray."
Right.
Or whatever, still silly string.
Yeah.
And
I
so
wanna
in
celebrate.
celebrating their birthdays, I just was trying to think of a happier thing. And it's just always so, when you hear one thing or see one thing and assume it, and then when you hear like the actual backstory behind it, you're like, oh yeah, if you isolated that one little moment, you didn't see her crying in the car before, you didn't see her shaking it off, you didn't see her being like, God, I remember that birthday 3 years ago. Like you don't, it's just so, which is what was so fascinating about the media portrayal
Right.
of Amanda Knox, and what was then conveyed over here as well. There's still people that think that she did have something to do with it, and there's still
Wow.
people that that think the whole thing's a hoax and it never happened. Like, whatever. There's always
No.
going to be somebody that says weird shit.
I mean, unfortunately, this was
A real person
It's a
who
real
did-
person. It's a true
Yeah.
story. It went terribly wrong on so many levels, and but it.
So then she does get convicted of saying that it was the Patrick guy, her boss, of defamation, which holds a maximum of 3 years in prison for defaming someone in Italy. And since she'd already done 4 years, they said, okay, you don't have to do any time. But she actually has that conviction of defamation in Italy. And then, came home, and I guess then has like lived her life and written her books and
Right.
all of that. But God, I mean, just
I can't imagine being the mother of a child that, and not being here or being here and really feeling completely powerless. I think that is the hardest thing. The damage was kind of done. I think the parents did everything they possibly could when the time happened, but the damage was
imagine
done.
hearing that she got 26 years.
Ugh.
And you can have an attorney saying, we're going to appeal and we're going to appeal. But I mean, it was not looking good. I mean, she had to spend those 4 years doing what could keep her mind sane of that I may never get out. And she
Right.
said every day was just, that she woke up was just eternal sadness. I mean, there was
Right.
just so hard to have any hope.
Right.
Like the fact that she is now, what a wonderful thing that she's got Grace Van Patten, who is a great casting match for her.
I think so.
And, a whole series, and she's still beautiful. She was very, very attractive. She had a very classic, beautiful look that required very little makeup, perfect
Correct.
features, blue eyes, brown hair, great nose, great profile, like, very attractive.
But very natural.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the other
It's like
thing
she
that's
didn't
so
need any
weird.
makeup
Yeah, it
or
wasn't like
anything.
she
Yeah.
presented as what they say, what do they
A
call her?
hussy or whatever,
or
yeah.
foxy noxy or whatever.
Yeah.
She didn't present that way at all. That's why it's really kind of frightening.
No, she was a good student.
Right.
That was just like, oh, this is fun, and I'm going to take advantage of all of it. And, did really connect with someone after sleeping with several others, and who cares? But she was connecting with him. And what a nightmare. We talk about like being blamed for something.
I
Can you
know.
imagine the guilt that you would, even though that you're in this situation, I would still feel guilty that like this boyfriend is also in this horrible thing with me.
Right.
Just because.
And Patrick. Everybody, it ballooned. And it's really that kind of idea when you find yourself just in a situation where you're like, how did I get here? And it just balloons, and you don't really, and you're desperately trying to backtrack and correct, and you still believe that you can, and then you can't. Yeah, it's pretty deafening, really.
Yes. And so there's so much more on it, to explore as far as like where she is now and what her relationships are with these other people. So obviously we can't cover it all here, but yeah, it was great talking to you, Shannon, and
Yeah.
tell everybody where they can follow and find you.
Thanks. I'm on Instagram, and it's just under my name, and also our law firm with my husband is michaelgoldstein.net.
So yes, you can reach out to them for any kind of legal advice or if you need counsel. And of course, I'm at heathermcdonald.net for everything, more Patreon, dates, all of it. Going to Vegas, you're going to come, right? You're going to come to my show? Yes, you are.
Oh, yes, I am.
November
Okay, got to put on the
14th.
calendar.
Yeah, November 14th. During BravoCon, so it'll be a lot lighter fare, but there'll be some real estate crimes. No, real estate. There'll be some Real Housewives crimes that I'm sure we will cover in the show, which does involve a lot of lying and things like that and false confessions. So it all comes back to Housewives as well as Juicy Crimes. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.